The Galactic Council chamber was massive, its domed ceiling glowing with artificial stars. Delegates from 100 alien species sat in curved rows, their eyes fixed on the central stage. There, in the middle of it all, stood the human delegation. They were the smallest group in the room, just 6 individuals in formal suits, standing with quiet confidence. For years, humanity had tried to reason with the Council. They had proposed fair trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, and diplomatic resolutions. But time and again, they had been ignored, mocked, and underestimated. The powerful empires saw humanity as nothing more than a minor species, useful for labor, but not for leadership. Today was supposed to be the final negotiation. Humanity had one last chance to secure fair treatment before making a decision that would shake the galaxy. Ambassador Julian Carter, the leader of the human delegation, stood at the podium. His voice was calm but firm. "We have given you every opportunity to treat us as equals. We have proven our worth in battle, in science, and in diplomacy. And yet, we still see no respect, no fairness." A deep, guttural laugh echoed from the front row. High Chancellor Urax of the Yulthar Dominion, a towering reptilian creature with dark scales, leaned forward, his voice dripped with arrogance. "Humans, always so dramatic. You speak of fairness. The galaxy is ruled by strength, not begging. Your kind should be grateful we even allow you to sit here." Several other alien delegates chuckled in agreement. Julian's fingers tightened around the data pad in his hand. "We are not begging, Chancellor. We are offering cooperation. A future where all species stand together, where no empire dominates another." A smaller alien, a Sarnix representative with glowing yellow eyes, sneered. "Enough of this nonsense. We have heard your speeches before. Humans are weak. Your fleets are small. Your worlds are few. You will take what we offer, or you will get nothing." Julian exhaled slowly, his expression unreadable. Then, without another word, he turned to his team and gave a simple nod. The entire human delegation stood up. One by one, they picked up their data pads and turned toward the exit. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Chancellor Urax's amusement faded. "What are you doing?" Julian stopped at the doorway and looked back. His voice was cold now. "We're done here." The chamber erupted in noise. Some delegates shouted for them to sit back down. Others laughed, thinking it was a bluff. But the humans didn't stop. They walked out of the great hall, their footsteps echoing in the silence that followed. Then, without warning, alarms began blaring across the council station. The holographic star maps flickered with red alerts. Fleet movements, communications blackouts. Panic spread like wildfire. One of the council's military officers rushed into the chamber, his face pale. We have a problem." Chancellor Urax growled. "What is it?" The officer swallowed hard. "Every human fleet just disappeared from our scanners." The room fell deathly silent. No one knew it yet, but the moment humanity walked away from the table, the balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted forever. The Galactic Council chamber remained in chaos long after the humans had left. Delegates shouted over one another, demanding answers. Some believed it was a bluff, just another attempt by the so-called stubborn primates to force the Council's hand. Others, however, weren't so sure. Chancellor Urax slammed his clawed hand on the table, his reptilian eyes narrowing. "Enough. Humans are not warriors. They do not have the strength to defy the Council. This is political theater, nothing more." But deep down, even he felt a sliver of unease. Across the galaxy, something strange was happening. Reports trickled in from different sectors. Human colonies had gone silent. Their trade routes were empty. Space stations once filled with merchants, explorers, and diplomats had shut down completely. "Where are the humans?" A delegate from the Vorsh coalition muttered, his voice uneasy. They have simply vanished." For the first time in centuries, the galaxy was witnessing something unprecedented. Humanity was withdrawing. At first, many saw it as weakness. Surely, the council had finally broken their spirit. But when the silence stretched into days, then weeks, even the most arrogant species began to worry. Meanwhile, in the Sol system, on the dark side of Earth's moon, hidden from prying eyes, an emergency meeting was taking place. The UN Security Council, the heads of the Terran Defense Fleet, and the most brilliant human minds sat around a holographic war table. A massive galactic star map hovered in the air, displaying the locations of every major alien fleet. Red markers indicated known threats. Admiral Catherine Reyes, her face hardened by years of battle, studied the data with cold calculation. "They think we walked away in defeat," she said. "Let's make sure they never think that again." A man in a sleek black suit leaned forward. Alexander Grayson, the director of the Human Intelligence Division, had the quiet, dangerous presence of someone who knew too much. Our withdrawal was necessary. It gave us time. Time to prepare, time to strategize. The Council believes they have won. He smirked. "Let's show them how wrong they are." Across the room, scientists and engineers presented their latest developments: new fleet formations, improved stealth technology, and weapons that had never been tested in open war. Humanity had spent decades perfecting their defenses, but now they were no longer defending. They were planning their first move. Back at the Council, panic was beginning to spread. Major trade routes were collapsing without human participation. The once busy relay stations on the outer edges of the galaxy were dark. And then, without warning, the first real shock arrived. A small Yulthar scouting vessel had attempted to enter human space. It was never heard from again. Chancellor Urax's claws tapped against the table, his irritation growing. "Send another." The second ship vanished just like the first. No distress signals, no wreckage, just gone. Then came the third. This time, they received a single transmission before it disappeared. "Turn back. You are not welcome here." The message was simple, but the cold, emotionless voice behind it sent shivers through even the bravest warriors. For the first time, the Council realized the truth. Humanity had not retreated. They had closed their borders, and no one knew what they were preparing behind those walls. Across the galaxy, confusion turned into quiet fear. Humanity had always been everywhere, trading, negotiating, expanding. And now, their space was a void. Entire human trade fleets had disappeared without a trace. The bustling space stations that once connected dozens of species were silent, their docking bays empty. The Galactic Council's intelligence agencies scrambled to gather information, but every attempt failed. Spies sent into human space never returned. Probes lost contact the moment they crossed the border. It was as if the entire species had simply vanished. But that wasn't possible. Chancellor Urax, the leader of the Council, paced inside his chambers, his claws scraping against the metal floor. "This is not how wars are fought," he muttered. "They should be angry. They should be retaliating. Why have they disappeared?" A trembling aide approached him, holding a datapad. "Chancellor, we received a new report. Something alarming." Urax snatched the datapad and read the contents. His yellow eyes widened. Human embassies across the galaxy had shut down overnight. Their diplomats had left without a word. Even human citizens living on alien worlds had quietly packed their things and vanished into the void. For the first time in history, the galaxy was completely without humans. Meanwhile, deep in human territory, inside a massive underground command center on Mars, the greatest human minds gathered. The room was dimly lit, filled with the hum of computers and holographic displays. Admiral Reyes stood at the center of it all, arms crossed. Before her, a massive holographic projection displayed the entire galactic map. Red indicators marked hostile fleets. Blue indicators, human forces, remained hidden. "This is what we've been preparing for," Reyes said. "They underestimated us. They thought they could dictate the terms. Now we dictate the battlefield. Across the table, Alexander Grayson, the head of intelligence, nodded. Our withdrawal was never about surrender. It was about control. We let them believe they broke us. Now, they don't even know where we are. A scientist, Dr. Evelyn Park, leaned forward. We've perfected the stealth fleet. Our ships can move undetected, strike without warning. The aliens won't even see us coming. A tense silence filled the room. Everyone in that chamber understood what was happening. Humanity had never intended to fight a war on the Council's terms. They had spent years preparing for this moment, building hidden fleets, developing new weapons, perfecting their strategies. And now, the entire galaxy had given them the perfect excuse to disappear and prepare for the final strike. Rays turned toward the projection. Now the question is, who do we strike first? Back at the Council, panic spread like wildfire. The loss of human trade routes was already causing economic collapse in several civilizations. The absence of human mediators was leading to political instability. But the real fear came from the unknown. Where were the humans? Why weren't they fighting back? And what were they planning in the darkness? The galaxy was on edge. The disappearance of humanity had left a void, and that void was spreading fear. Trade collapsed. Political tensions rose. And yet, no one knew what the humans were doing in the shadows. Then the first strike came. The destruction of the Exhilarating Armada. The Exhilarating were among the loudest voices pushing for humanity's downfall. They had led the charge at the negotiating table, demanding human submission. Now, with no humans left in Council affairs, they saw an opportunity. They launched a massive fleet to claim human colonies left behind. Over 100 warships, armed to the teeth, jumped into former human space. Their sensors picked up nothing. No distress signals. No human resistance. For a brief moment, the Exhilarating commanders laughed. "See," one of them said, "they are gone. Their worlds are ours." Then their ships started vanishing. The ghost fleet appears. The Exhilarating warships were still scanning the abandoned human colonies when their forward ships suddenly disappeared from the sensors. Not destroyed. Not attacked. Gone. Confusion spread among the fleet. Frantic messages filled the command channels. What's happening? Our lead ships are gone. Then something worse happened. Their rear ships, those guarding the retreat, vanished as well. Panic set in. This was no battle. There was no visible enemy, no incoming fire. It was like the void itself was swallowing them whole. Aboard the flagship, Admiral Vakaratal snarled, "Find out who's attacking us. I want full scans." The lights flickered. Then, the entire bridge plunged into darkness. The crew's voices turned into screams as something unseen ripped through the ship. The last thing the Admiral heard before everything went silent was a voice, distorted yet unmistakably human. "You wanted war. Now you'll see what true war is." The Exhilarating fleet never returned. The Council's desperate meeting. A day later, the Galactic Council received a message. It was a simple transmission. A single image. The Exhilarating fleet, shattered. Warships torn apart. Entire crews missing, as if erased from existence. Not a single survivor. The message was clear. Humanity was back. But they weren't coming to talk. They were coming to end this. The destruction of the Exhilarating fleet sent shockwaves across the galaxy. The council chambers were filled with chaos as representatives from dozens of species argued, shouted, and panicked. Fear gripped them all. This was not the war they had expected. They had assumed that without allies, without political power, humanity would wither away, struggling to survive on the fringes of the galactic stage. Instead, they had disappeared into the void, only to return as a nightmare, striking without warning, without mercy. The footage of the ruined Exhilarating Armada played on repeat in the chamber. The once mighty warships reduced to floating wreckage, their crews gone as if they had never existed. No distress signals, No reports of battle, just silence before the end. The HFY leader slammed a fist onto the table, demanding answers. We need to retaliate. We must wipe them out before they strike again. But how? No one knew where humanity was, how they had gained such devastating power, or what their next move would be. The Council's intelligence networks found nothing. No signals, no broadcasts, not even whispers of human activity. It was as if they had become ghosts. That was when the second attack came. This time, it was the Vrothi, another species that had mocked and undermined humanity during negotiations. Their trade convoys, vital for fuel and supplies, vanished overnight. No wreckage, no survivors, just empty space where fleets once traveled. The Vrothi homeworld, a shining beacon of commerce, suddenly plunged into darkness as its orbital stations lost all contact. And then, a single transmission arrived. A human voice, calm and steady, echoed through the Council's secure channels. We warned you. You chose to ignore us. Now, there is no table to return to. Only consequences. Panic turned into desperation. Military fleets scrambled. But against what? Against whom? There was no enemy to face, no territory to invade. Humanity had abandoned the rules of war, and the galaxy was utterly unprepared. Species that had once called humans weak now whispered in fear of their name. But it was too late. The real war had just begun. The Council was paralyzed with fear. Every attempt to track humanity had failed. The species that once sat at their table, laughed at their insults, and swallowed their disrespect had vanished into the void, only to return as a silent predator. Their fleets didn't move like any known armada. They left no trails, no signals, only destruction. The HFY and Vrothi had been the first to suffer, but they wouldn't be the last. Every race that had ridiculed, belittled, or betrayed humanity now found themselves waiting in terror, wondering when their punishment would come. The Council scrambled to respond. Fleets were mobilized. Defense networks were reinforced. Treaties were rewritten, alliances forged in desperation. But there was one problem. Humanity didn't care. They weren't negotiating anymore. They weren't making demands. They weren't answering messages. They were simply watching. A sense of paranoia spread through the galaxy. Leaders didn't sleep. Every strange movement in space, every missing cargo ship, every unexplained system failure sent a cold chill down their spines. Entire planets lived in fear of the day their world would go dark. And then it happened again. The Tarlis Empire, one of the oldest and most powerful factions in the galaxy, woke up to a nightmare. Their outer colonies, fortified worlds with planetary defenses, were simply gone. The worlds themselves remained untouched, but the people, the ships, the cities, all had vanished. No explosions, no battles, no wreckage. It was as if humanity had reached into their very homes and erased them from existence. The Council finally understood. This was not about war anymore. This was not about diplomacy. This was about something far worse. Humanity had left the table. And now, the galaxy belonged to them. The galaxy stood still, holding its breath as the final act of humanity's silent war unfolded. No one knew when it would happen or how, but every race that had wronged them understood one thing. Humanity had no need for threats anymore. The warnings had been given, the betrayals had been punished, and now the final judgment was coming. The once mighty Tarlis Empire, the loudest voice in the Council, was reduced to ghosts whispering in the dark. Their fleets, their colonies, their vast networks of trade and war machines had been dismantled with surgical precision. Not a single shot had been fired, yet they had lost everything. They weren't the first, and they wouldn't be the last. The Council's remaining members gathered in desperation. The great halls, once filled with arrogance and laughter at humanity's expense, were now silent chambers of fear. Every race present had a reason to fear the ghosts that moved in the shadows. Some had insulted humanity, some had stolen from them, and others had stood by and watched as they were pushed to the edge. None were innocent. The transmissions started the same way. Flickering screens, distorted voices, footage of ships that once belonged to the Council now flying under no banner. Silent fleets drifting through space, moving like predators, striking only when their prey had no hope of escaping. There was no offer of surrender, no demands, no negotiations. And then, finally, the voice of humanity returned. It was not filled with anger. It was not filled with hatred. It was cold, calculated, unshaken. You dismissed us. You mocked us. You thought we would break. You were wrong. The message played across every screen in the galaxy, on battle stations, on colony worlds, in the very heart of the Council chambers. Every race that had once seen humanity as a joke now understood the truth. We do not seek war. We do not seek conquest. We only seek justice. The message ended, leaving only silence in its wake. And one by one, the Council's remaining factions began to surrender. Not because they were attacked, not because they were given an ultimatum, but because they finally understood the truth. Humanity didn't need to conquer the stars. They already owned them.